Plastic, one of mankind's most versatile materials. From your phone cases to milk jugs to even the clothes you wear, you are sure to come across at least one plastic product in your day-to-day life. But with so much plastic, the question remains, where does it go when we're done with it? Oftentimes, these materials end up in our environment, turning a once useful product of human innovation into a nuisance for our planet. The area that I wanted to talk about specifically are our waterways. So much plastic has entered into our waters over the years that scientists estimate by 2050 the total weight of marine plastics in the ocean will in fact outweigh the total amount of fish in the ocean. This is a striking statistic, I always mess that word up, that I wanted to present in the beginning to emphasize the impact plastics are having worldwide. My name is Glenn Hall, and today we will be exploring how plastics can leave a permanent mark on our waterways. I hope you enjoy. The Anacostia River, a beautiful 8.7-mile river situated just 15 minutes from where I live here in Southeast DC, has always been a place of wonder for me. It's my own little escape from the hustle and bustle of city life without having to actually leave the city. Originally called the Anacostia by the indigenous Anacostan peoples, the river has been a source of both transportation and resources for centuries. However, as colonization began to take hold in the area, large portions of the river and surrounding forested areas were ravaged by industrialization. This oftentimes took the form of cutting down trees to make way for farming or ships using the river for trade. These industries deposited toxic sludge into the river, which made shipping nearly impossible, and by the late 1800s, the river was abandoned for commercial use. Fast forward to today, and the health of the river continues to struggle. I am not going to sugarcoat it. The river is dirty. If you were to hear that someone wanted to go swimming in the river, you would look at them like they were crazy. Pollution and litter run rampant throughout the river and surrounding green spaces. I decided to go out one day for a sort of inventory of the trash I could find and was honestly shocked by what I saw. I always knew that trash was a problem in and around the Anacostia, but to actually go out to look for it and see how much was truly out there put everything into so much perspective for me. I consistently saw plastic trash in the form of either bottles or bags. I in fact saw more plastic trash than I did wildlife. This was again shocking and really enforces for me the need to address a growing problem in the river and a major point of concern for this project: microplastics. Now, what are microplastics? As the name suggests, they are tiny. In fact, microplastics are defined as any plastic pieces that measure less than 5 millimeters in length. They can come from a multitude of sources, such as plastic bags or other trash that end up in the river, but I also wanted to point out some surprising sources from our daily lives. Many people use face washes such as Clean and Clear or Neutrogena that contain exfoliating beads, but what they don't realize is that these beads don't break down and eventually end up in our rivers and water supplies. Microplastics have been found in all parts of the ocean, as well as in many rivers across the globe. These practically invisible fragments of plastic pose a potential health risk to organisms as they can potentially leach harmful chemicals into the environment. What is even more alarming is that these plastics do not fully leave the environment. They simply break down into smaller and smaller pieces. This can have a ripple effect when they enter our waterways. Say, for example, a fish eats a piece of plastic that they think is food in the river. You go out and catch that fish and then take it home to eat. And then boom, you too could be eating little pieces of plastic that could be poisoning your body. Microplastics can even enter our drinking water supplies, as they can easily pass through water filtration systems that are not designed to target particles this small. Now, with this growing problem of trash and microplastics in the water, who is doing anything to help? I set out to speak with different agencies and organizations around the city to see what they are doing, both to address the growing needs of the Anacostia as well as the growing concern for microplastics. And the first agency that I came across was the Anacostia Watershed Society. Originally started in 1989, the Anacostia Watershed Society's mission is to protect and preserve the river by engaging their business partners as well as the community in the ultimate goal of a clean river that can be passed down to future generations. Every year, they produce a report card summarizing the health of the river. This might seem bad, but currently the river sits at a D, which is actually a huge improvement over the years when it consistently received a failing grade of an F. I was able to sit down with one of the people who helps pull together these reports by going out and quantifying the amount of trash in the river, Masaya Maeda. Although we didn't get the chance to record an interview, I was able to gain some valuable insights into what goes into measuring the types of trash and the volume of trash in the river. And here's a clip of Mr. Maeda actually going out to the river to kind of do a checkup on the trash trap at Nash Run, which is a tributary in the Anacostia River. And from the video, you can see just how much trash this trap collects, and you can also kind of understand the type of like physical effort that goes into these measurements, because he has to literally go out there and measure all this stuff by hand. So without further ado,
I'm Masaya with the Anacostia Watershed Society. Corona pandemic doesn't stop us from maintaining our trash trap. We are supposed to maintain trash trap weekly. That's why I'm here in front of National Trash Trap, keeping a social distance from other people, nobody around me, and when it rains more, the water level becomes higher, and stream force is supposed to push these trapped material to the higher end of this screen type trash trap. This screen type trash trap is unique because it's screen, and this one can capture both floatable trash and non-floatable trash. And this trap provided a data, a good quality data, and we learned that 70% trash species do not float on the water. So we are trying to raise awareness about the non-floatable trash problem, because most trapping devices cannot capture non-floatable trash, and 70% of pieces just fall through underneath most trapping devices. Again, this national trash trap can capture both floatable and non-floatable trash.
So Mr. Maeda goes out to certain points in the river, in this case Nash Run, which is a tributary of the Anacostia, to collect his data, a sometimes difficult task when thinking about how much trash can physically be out there. Trash is broken down into 13 different categories, and from those categories, he measures the amount of trash by weight, as well as other measurements such as volume. From the trash trap at Nash Run, he was able to collect 3,865 pounds of trash. Now, this is a staggering number when you realize that this is just one point in that 8.7 mile river, as well as its tributaries. And I just want to let that number sink in. As a whole, it was a very interesting moment to see some of the data translated into something that I could actually understand and visualize with that big number, 3,800 pounds of trash. Uh, and I think that this is an important step for my community in also understanding the problem. Making the science more digestible and less complicated helps to get the helps to put the problem into perspective, regardless of what demographic you might be talking to. But it really especially makes it simpler for people without a science background to uh, become more involved in this problem because they have a better idea of what's actually going on. I also had the opportunity to sit down and talk with my mentor, Mr. Absalom Jordan. He currently serves as the president of Friends of Oxen Run, an organization that helps to conserve Oxen Run Park, which is in fact the largest park in DC Parks and Recs inventory. I've been a visitor to this park my entire life, as it's literally a 5 minute walk from my house. I think it was one of the many spaces that sparked my love for nature. Um, and I planned this interview with Mr. Jordan, someone who has been an advocate for this city and its residents his entire career, and somebody who I know is passionate about the environment as well. People who you are, what you do, your different roles and involvements.
Well, my name is Absalom Jordan. I'm a 80-year-old native Washingtonian. I grew up in the city. I went to the public schools here. I attended the University District of Columbia. Well, it really was Federal City College at that point for 3 years. And then I left uh, because I had a calling, so to speak. I was concerned about what was happening to Black people.
Mm.
And I was caught, came up in a time in the midst of Dr. King and the civil rights struggle and the Black Power struggle. So I left to be a part of that struggle. Today, I'm an advisory neighborhood commissioner here in Washington, D.C., which is the lowest level of elected officials that we have in the city. I'm also the president of my tenant association. I have a couple of nonprofit organizations. One is Friends of Oxen Run, which is an organization designed to protect the green space and the fauna and flora in the Oxen Run Park. I also have another nonprofit organization called Discovering Me and the Gifts Inside, which is an organization that is designed to help parents and their children discover gifts that God has provided them so that they can help to develop those gifts together. Also, like I said, my tenant association is a 501c3. I am a member of the Bethlehem Baptist Church and a member of their board of trustees. And so there are other things that I'm doing in Washington, but I guess those are things that to me are the important ones.
Thank you. And I guess to start off, I wanted to hone in on Friends of Oxen Run, and specifically what made you want to, I guess, save Oxen Run Park or try to be the voice of the park.
Well, there are a couple of things. One is I grew up in the city when I was less than a quarter of a mile, not even a quarter of a mile from a 600-acre farm in the middle of Washington, D.C. That was the Soldiers Home Farm. And for people to get some kind of idea of where it is, if you look at the Washington Hospital Center, that's where the main building in the Washington Hospital Center sits, where uh, the cow barn used to sit at Soldiers Home Farm. So I could walk across the street and we would be in a farm that had cows, it had chickens, it grew corn and alfalfa and what have you. And we spent time. I mean, the public was allowed to go into Soldiers Home. So I grew up in an environment where we had the farm. Also, I grew up at a time when Washington was noted for having more trees, the most beautiful trees line streets of any place in the world. We outshone Paris, France. So, I grew up at a time when we had so much in terms of of the environment that I'm looking for today. What happens though is I when I got out of the service, I moved to Savannah Street, no, to Congress Street, an apartment there. I had children, and my children used to go and play down in Oxen Run, and so having grown up, like I say, near Soldiers Home, and we used to take trips up to Rock Creek Park and to the National Zoological Park. So you always had that kind of connection with nature, you know. And so my kids had it, and later on, Marion Barry was interested in doing something about Oxford Run Park, and so he helped me to get started with a group called ORCA, which was Oxen Run Community Alliance. That was the name that somebody recommended to us, but it wasn't really what we ultimately have come to be known as Friends of Oxen Run. But the objective there was to preserve the park and to maintain the flora and fauna in the park.
Park. That's that. I guess I want to say that's where I grew up. So from an early age, I learned like the importance of both green spaces as well as waterways, and that's where I want to kind of like move the conversation to Anacostia. So my project deals with sort of like getting the public involved in, I guess, understanding the waterway and also being like stewards, like environmental stewards. And I guess with that, where do you see I want to say private citizens and their involvement? How can we as private citizens help like
Well,
waterways such as Anacostia?
I have, when you say private citizens, I have a problem with that definition. Okay.
Mm,
We are residents, we are citizens, and it doesn't make any difference what our status is in terms of whether we are commercial entities or what.
mhm,
In fact, I think the greatest role will be played by, quote, residents and citizens as opposed to the commercial establishment. And so I think it's essential to do two things. One is to educate people, because I don't believe that people will protect something that they don't know exists.
right,
And so for the parks in Ward 8, and by the way, Mary Berry also created a Ward 8 Parks Committee. And so I was the chair of the committee that dealt with Friends of Oxen Run, but Mr. James Bunn was the chairman of the portion of the parks outside of Oxen Run in Ward 8. So he was interested in all of the parks, that the space, that green space that we have. And like I said, again, this all comes from the impetus, the initiative of Marion Barry wanting to see these things done. So I see there's a crucial role. In fact, that's the most important role. Let's be honest about it. I've talked to people, this National Park Service, for example. I've talked to people at Department of Parks and Recreation, or people at Department of Energy and Environment. These agencies have a culture,
mm,
and they exist to perform certain duties. And let's say if you didn't have a planning staff, some people wouldn't have jobs. You understand?
mhm,
So if you didn't have economists, some people would. If you didn't have environmentalists, some people would have jobs. So their interest is parochial, because not only do they want to in some ways promote and protect the culture of those agencies, they want to promote and protect their own livelihood. Okay.
right,
And so sometimes that's in conflict with what's in the best interest of the community, of the people, of the residents.
mhm,
And so it's important for uh, people, residents, citizens. I have a problem with citizens, but let's say the residents or the people who
residents.
live in a community, to be aware of what that resource is, so that they can protect it. Let's take an example. In Oxen Run, there's what is known as a magnolia bog. That is a unique uh, place along the East Coast. There are very few magnolia bogs. We are fortunate to have it in Oxen Run. But because people can't see it, and because they can't visualize it or visit it, we can see pictures of what a magnolia bark looks like. We know what a magnolia tree looks like, but a magnolia bark, we don't know that, right? And so unless we can get people involved in activities in the park and educate them about the importance of maintaining green space, planting trees and what have you, but trees not the only solution to, the environment and global warming and what have you. So, but these are things that we have to educate people about, so that they in turn will be willing to support protection of these green spaces.
Right. Yeah, and I think my biggest, I guess, focus would be recycling. I know that oftentimes you can see entire patches of the river just covered in all types of trash. The same thing in certain places of Oxen Run. And I think that again, that education part is extremely important. You don't know what you're doing until someone tells you, I guess. Like you don't know the type of impact that you're having until you actually are made aware of that. So I think that yes,
One thing
education.
though, you mentioned about the trash and what have you that's in the Anacostia River, for example.
Mm,
And the city has some boats. They're equipped to go and clean up that trash. And I don't know whose responsibility it is, whether it's Tommy Wells at the Department of Energy and Environment or some other agency, but I really would like to get on one of those boats in one day and try to do some cleaning, because yeah, I think it's a shame. Let me just tell you, I remember once going down, because there used to be like an amphitheater on the Potomac River by the Lincoln Memorial, and so
mm,
they used to have a barge there, and they used to have concerts on the barge, right?
mm,
And so my brothers and I, my wife and them wouldn't go with us, but my brothers and I and some of the children rented some canoes once, and we paddled down to watch the concert. And one of the things that troubled me at that point was to see all of the oil that
mm.
was on the water at that point. And so yeah, I'm with you. We should be doing everything we can to make certain that our environment is clean and safe. Again, like I say, though, people don't know. So you go and look at the Potomac River, and you might be standing down at Haynes Point, and you can't see certain things that are affecting the river,
Mhm.
that in fact destroying the river. And so it becomes important for us to have places, venues where we can educate people about that. And that's one of my dreams for Oxen Run, is to have a nature center at Oxen where we can teach about the flora and fauna, but also to teach about the environment and how do we protect the environment. Because I think like a lot of people just don't understand the role that they can play in preserving this and protecting, Glenn,
Protect.
protecting it. Yes. I would love to see us do things where we start getting kids at an early age. You think about it a moment. Serena Williams was taught at an early age to play tennis, right?
Right.
Well, just think if we taught young people at an early age to protect, first out of respect and love, and then to protect the environment,
Mm,
then we wouldn't have some of the problems that we're experiencing today. So it's important for us to reach them and let them know what is there, why it's important.
mhm,
There's so many discoveries. This year we had what is known as a City Nature Challenge in Oxen Run, and it was just fantastic. I mean, for us to discover some things. And the organization that conducted the Nature Challenge did an inventory of what we found, and they could show what we found in the last 2 years, for example. So, for example, there's some reptiles are just not existing anymore. So, what is it we can do to ensure that there's going to be space for these reptiles? I think one of the things that's exciting is the Department of Energy and Environment under Tommy Wells is moving to take the concrete that is encasing the creek out, taking that out
mhm,
and restoring the creek to almost original habitat, so to speak, and that will offer all kinds of opportunities to bring back some of the species of animals that are not there anymore.
Right. And
Again, though, we need people to help us with that effort.
definitely. And I think that's a perfect segue into I was going to ask, where do you see the future of I guess the waterways in the district and the surrounding the DMV area? Um, I know that project with the stream restoration, I definitely will change. I know Oxen Run Park to be a more natural space, and I guess I know there's also similar projects being done for the Anacostia as well. And where do
Well,
you see these different waterways? And I say let's say 10 years and 50 years.
well, in 50 years, I hope we've remediated all of the problems that exist,
Mhm.
and that people can once again fish in the Anacostia River and eat the fish they catch. You know, like right now, people are fishing and catching them and eating them, but
Mhm.
they're not it's not advisable for them to do that.
Mhm.
Um, in 10 years, I would like to have seen us, and let me just say, it's going to take a massive educational effort, getting not just education, but having people to participate, in the process of doing this. But I hope we'll see a cleanup of the Anacostia well, first of all, we see some of the tributaries that lead into the Anacostia, because that's important as well. So I'm hoping that the city will, in 10 years, will have eliminated any problems we have with the tributaries that lead into the Anacostia, so that they will be clean. Uh, they'll be discharging clean water, water that's potable, hopefully potable water. Uh, and the same thing holds with WASA. They have various systems that uh, uh, discharge water into the Anacostia and into Oxen Run, for example. So I'd like to see in 10 years, the city has addressed the problem, that where we are cleaning up, we're remediating those problems that exist from the sewer system and from some of these creeks that we have, that these tributaries that lead into the Anacostia and Potomac rivers. Again, like I say, in 50 years, well, I won't be here, man. I mean, yeah. But
And
in
you never
50
know.
years, no, man, I'm not going to be 130 years old. Well, I don't know. We got people living 110, but I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't know if there needs to be space for some young people to come after me. So I don't want to be taking up any space. But for me, I'd like to see in 50 years that the Potomac River would be as clean, and the Anacostia River would be as clean as it was 100 years ago.
Mhm.
And I think we can do that. Now, you know, uh, part of the problem is that black people have been locked out of this whole endeavor, okay? And white people have taken the initiative. They've also created the network systems, and they're the ones who are getting all the funding and everything. So in 10 years, I'd like to see blacks uh, have more prominent positions. In fact, uh, I guess not just prominent, but the, the decision making positions in the whole environmental movement,
Mhm.
where like our voice will have as much, if not more, credibility than the people who are considered leaders today. I don't know if people want to train up a new group of folks that will replace them who are going to be black, but I think uh, uh, that I would love to see in 10 years that we are playing a more prominent role, because we've trained our children up, we've educated parents and people in the community, and they all realize the importance of preserving, uh, not just preserving, but maintaining and protecting the environment, Glenn.
Yeah. And I think the biggest takeaway is it starts young. It definitely starts young. I know for me personally, I would probably not be here today having this conversation if I didn't start off loving the environment from animals and the environment from an early age. Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, the whole nine. It starts young, so.
Can I make another point about 50 years though?
Mhm.
Maybe I would love to see the city like it was 50 years ago.
Mm.
When I grew up on Irvin Street, and you had a tree canopy where at 12 o'clock, I don't care how hot it was during the summer, you could come outside and sit on your front porch and you'd be cool.
Mm.
But Sherman Avenue was encased in a tree canopy where, I would love to, oh man. And it's some other things too. I would like to see fewer cars on the street and more uh, public transportation. When I grew up, we had the street cars, Glenn,
Yeah.
and so we had cars that weren't the street cars were all electric. They weren't contributing to the environment, degradation of the environment. They weren't contributing to a carbon sequestration. I mean that carbon uh,
Missions.
missions. Yeah, they weren't contributing to that. The street cars were clean. They were quiet. Oh
Right.
man, I mean, if you could only go back and see some of the video of those good old days. So, 50 years from that would be nice to see that the city may have, in some ways, retrograded.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think that the city will get back to, I guess, or a new normal for sustainability. Um, with our ever growing demands for like we're killing our planet, honestly. But and then, so the demands are changing. But I think that we will go back to a simpler time, a cleaner time.
Hopefully. Let me
Hopefully.
suggest one thing though. There are going to be some roadblocks to us doing that.
Mm.
And one is development, the whole question of the economy, economics. And we find ourselves in the position today that we are in terms of the ecology because businesses didn't give a damn about what they did.
Mm.
They polluted the environment. They've gave, you think about all that they've done in terms of, and they didn't care. And then they've said to the public, you got to clean it up.
Right.
So I think that we need to keep in mind, we need to focus on the fact that yes, we may want these things, but we're going to have to fight some folks
Mhm.
in order to achieve them. And that, uh, I don't know if we said that capitalism is the problem or business is the problem, because you could have some nonprofit businesses who would be just as problematic in terms of trying to reach the goals that you and I would like to see achieved.
Mhm.
But I think that we need to take that into consideration. The fight that we're going to be involved in, and like I say, the reason it happened is because businesses wanted to see it happen. You understand? We've done so much to accommodate the needs of business, but I hope that we'll be mindful of that so that we'll understand that there's some things that are more important. The ecology is more important than tearing down a system that promotes the health, peace, mental health. Come on, man. Let's be honest. When you go to the park, you can find serenity there. You can find peace there at times. So uh, uh, we have to be willing to fight for that, man.
Right. It's a it's going to be an uphill battle, but
Yes.
I'm ready to fight, and I want to encourage other people to be ready for that fight as well. So, and I think this is a start. This is definitely a start with what I'm doing, and I just hope that it makes that impact. So,
No,
I just,
when you say you hope, I'm saying to you, you will make an impact. I've always encouraged you, my brother. So
yeah.
the thing is that I know, see, and I feel good that we're passing some things on to folks like young folks like yourself.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
uh, because the future is in your hands, and I feel comfortable in knowing that you're going to be a part of that future.
Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Jordan.
thank you, son.
And I just want to say thank you for your time in doing this interview, and yeah. My conversation with Mr. Jordan was honestly amazing. His view on the environment really helped me in my understanding of what can be done for the community, and then understanding that this is indeed a community problem. We have the agency to make a difference for what is ours, just as much as any other organization or government entity. One of the biggest takeaways I had from our conversation was the concept of awareness. Awareness is the first part of changing the issues we see in our environment. Having programs geared toward educating my community will play a vital role in the continued health of the river. I was also astounded at his optimism for the future of the river. Oftentimes, I hear people become complacent with how the river currently is, and that they feel powerless in making a change. But with Mr. Jordan, he wholeheartedly believes that the river can and will be revitalized. With everything that I have left with you today, what's next? I think that taking action to help protect the Anacostia can take many different forms. Here is one idea that, no matter how small it might seem, can make a huge difference for the future health of the river: recycling. Recycling helps keeps our discarded plastics and other materials out of our environment, and in turn, they are turned into something that can be used again. Awareness is key in creating a change, and to echo what Mr. Jordan said, it should start with the younger generation. Starting kids early on understanding the benefits and beauty of nature, as well as instilling in them the importance of recycling, for example, will set them on a lifelong journey of appreciation and the protection of nature. The final thing I want to leave you with is the importance of getting out and being involved in your community. I had the opportunity to participate in a trash cleanup at Oxen Cove with cadets from the Metropolitan Police Department. Participating in or organizing a neighborhood cleanup like this one can play a huge role in cutting down on a litter that can potentially end up in the river. It also leaves you with the warm feeling that comes from knowing that you, yes you, made a difference. And here are some clips from said cleanup. If we can take these steps now, one day we will be able to see a new life brought back to the Anacostia. It is my hope that people can finally swim in a river without the threat of harmful chemicals, or be able to fish without the fear of microplastics in their catch. I envision a better Anacostia, and I hope to bring about that change. It is also my hope that you feel the same way. Thank you.